Okay, hello, and welcome to Tech and Learning Conversations. I'm Kevin Hogan, and in this interview, I was joined with Chris Hagel. Chris is a K-12 CIO from Washington State, and someone I've been running into at conferences and airport gates for more than either of us would like to care to admit, but always a great conversation, someone who is always on the top of what's happening in the ed tech space. Chris was fresh off Cozen when we talked, and he had a lot on his mind. The screen time debate, districts using AI to build their own ed tech tools, an app catalog that quietly ballooned into thousands of approved tools during the pandemic, and a parent community that is more engaged and more anxious about technology with their students than ever before. The title of the talk he was about to give the afternoon we recorded this at yet another conference was titled EdTech Got Away From Us, and It's Kind of Our Fault. I think that kind of gives you a taste of what we talked about. I hope you enjoy it. Here's Chris Hagel. This will be a very special episode of Tech and Learning Conversations. It'll be kind of retro, where we don't have to look at each other, but we'll talk on the phone. So again, great talking to you. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're out at another conference, but maybe we'll just start off and talk about the conference that you were just recently attending, the one where I usually see you stomp in the hallways between sessions, or maybe at the airport gate or a lobby bar or something. But Cozen, how did things turn out for you this year?
Cozen was great this year. It was the biggest Cozen ever, so that was exciting. I think at Cozen this year, we kind of had, at least for me, a couple of big conversations that were going on. Everybody's starting to talk about, the screen time debate that's happening out in the media. And we had an amazing keynote one of the days there. Dr. Candace Odgers from UC Irvine, she talked about, this is somebody that's been doing research on this topic for many, many years about, what does student mental health look like in terms of device usage and social media. And so, she came with some actual research, not just fear that, kind of makes it out there in the media. So I think a lot of people have, really got some great information out of that. I personally did. And then the other kind of big conversation that was going on was that people were talking to me about was some of the things that we're doing in our district around using AI for coding and AI for developing our own ed tech products. And so, it was kind of the tech directors that were coming up to me wanting to talk more about how we did that and what we're doing and how we're doing it safely. And then some of our ed tech partners, also noticeably worried about what this does for them. And then on the flip side, how they can, support our districts as this becomes more and more prevalent. And so some really great conversations on both of those tracks.
Yeah, it's interesting about, you mentioned both of those topics and the element of fear that come with them. This is not the first rodeo for either of us when it comes to looking at how technology affects education. I remember articles in Tech and Learning about not putting computers in the classroom, right? And that meant giant desktops with 12-inch screens. And it's now the devices continue to change, but also the technology, obviously, with AI becoming as sophisticated as it is. And there is a fear factor. How do you deal with that as a district leader when not only dealing with your faculty, but also parents and community at large, which now seems even more engaged, probably as a result of the pandemic and remote learning, to how these devices work and the sort of effect that it has on students?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I did a talk about 6 weeks ago at a conference, and I put the word paradox up on the screen, and it was, we're experiencing the most powerful technology we've ever seen in our lifetimes, and it's the thing that more people are scared of than we've ever seen before as well. So I think I've had more parents either in my office or contacting me directly this year than I probably ever have in my 26-year career. When you sit down with parents and you have a conversation about what are they worried about and what are their fears and what do they want to see out of their kids' education. And then you talk to them about what is truly happening in the classroom. I think it's just a dialogue that needs to take place.
Yeah.
I mean, when you sit down and say, this is, the work that we're doing with kids on devices is purposeful. Our teachers are, implementing things that are pedagogically sound. This is what they instructionally designed for your kids to do. This isn't kids sitting in class scrolling TikTok all day. This isn't just mindlessly watching movies on YouTube. Hopefully,
Right.
and our teachers are doing a great job of trying to make sure that the time that kids do spend on devices in classrooms is purposeful. And so, the biggest thing, and I'm doing a talk at a conference today about this, is we've got to change the narrative and separate the conversations around consumer technology and education technology. They're two drastically different things, and they're designed for totally different reasons. And so when you talk about those and you have those conversations with parents, they're okay with it. And, I was at an event last week with a representative from one of the big filter companies, and they were saying that they've started studying this year what is the actual time an average student spends on a device in schools, and it's in the ballpark of like 70 minutes a day. So it's not like kids are going to school for 6.5 hours and they're just sitting staring at their Chromebook for 6 of those 6.5 hours. It's, they're on for a very limited amount of time, and for the most part, it is purposeful. Now, let's be honest, there's probably some things that we probably need to do a little bit better. We need to vet some of our software for what is the actual efficacy of using that in the classroom. What is the return on instruction, whatever the moniker you want to use with that is. But it is, for the most part, really targeted and appropriate for kids in the classroom. So.
Yeah. Now, I know that your district, and you obviously are an innovator, and the district has been cutting edge for a long time. And not only from the conceptual part of the conversation that you just kind of emoted there, but also from a practical end of things when it comes to, say, acceptable use policies, and in terms of you talked about vetting software and then getting costs. So there are also plenty of districts out there that are nowhere near the shape that you guys are in when it comes to putting these things together. So if any of our readers, our listeners who are following along with this conversation today, what would be some of the first practical steps that you would recommend for a district executive who might be feeling overwhelmed with all this?
Well, I think there's still, and we're not perfect by any means. I look at our catalog of approved EdTech apps that we've allowed over the years, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is really way too many things. And so we've started the conversation with our teachers. We have a teacher representative group that I meet with monthly to talk about, they come back in from their buildings and we talk about what is technology usage looking like, what are you seeing in the classroom? And we started having the conversation this year that, ever since the pandemic, we kind of just were like, whatever you think is going to work in your classroom, we're willing to just, we'll check it for safety, we'll check it for data privacy. And after that, we'll kind of just let the teachers make that decision on their own. When you do that, your catalog of apps that you've approved all of a sudden is 1, 2, 3,000 things sitting there that are like, okay, I don't know that this is the best way. So now we're trying to, start pulling that back a little bit, try and find the actually most effective apps and the most impactful. And let's make sure that those are the ones that we're relying on a daily basis. One of the things that we did a board presentation, myself and our chief academic officer together. This isn't a technology only problem. This is an instruction issue as well. And, we just talked about, what do we believe about good instruction? What do we believe about the effective use and purposeful use of technology in the classroom? And we're working on some stuff that we're going to roll out for next school year. We will put all of this on the website, on our district website, so parents can see it's really a communication problem. You just have to do a lot of communication to share with parents what is actually taking place in the classroom.
Yeah.
And that's really what they want to see. We're also committed. Still don't know how we're going to do this yet. I'm talking to some of our education technology partners right now. But we're wanting to do a transparency report next year and just share, either quarterly or, once or twice a year. What does it look like for the kids in our district at each grade level? What are they doing on technology? What are we seeing? Because we have this data. We're overwhelmed with data. And what can we share with parents on a global or meta scale to just kind of generalize what are our kids in our district doing? And then the best place for those parents to also have those conversations is with the actual classroom teacher. The teacher can tell the parent better than anybody what are the kids doing in the classroom. So those are some of the tips that I am going to give today in the talk that I'm doing this afternoon. And I hope that more districts start, looking at this is something that we have to do. And the title of my talk is, ed tech got away from us and it's kind of our fault.
Yeah.
And so we've got to get a little bit more clear on the message and the stories that we're telling. And once you tell those stories, parents get behind it. It's just, you got to get out there in front of it and tell the story.
Well, and it sounds like you can probably use some generative AI to create those transparency reports, right? It's almost kind of meta, or it's like using the AI on the back end and not even on the instructional end.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, that kind of ties into the other thing I was telling you about a little bit ago with Cofin. Like, we have done some amazing work using some of the AI coding tools that are out there right now. And, for years, we've been getting recognition for a lot of the AI stuff that we do. And we use AI to build an entire website talking about our AI, an AI tool to build a website to talk about our AI work. We're going to do the same thing with our, purposeful technology usage. We'll probably build a separate website just about that, sharing stories, sharing data. We'll have AI do the data analysis for us and, compile a bunch of these data sources that we have across the district, bring them back together and share that out so that parents can see it in one place. And that's the work we're committed to. So.
Well, that's amazing. And the folks who are able to see you in person give this presentation are the lucky ones. I'm appreciative just to be able to grab your ear before you go into it, and like all these things, that you're helping to dispel this element of fear about all of this. And I can tell that probably spreads to your community as well, where I'm feeling better about things at the end. So thank you.
Okay, I'd like to once again thank Chris for taking the time to share his insights. A few things worth taking away, I think, from that conversation. First, the paradox framing that he opened with, that we've got the most powerful technology ever seen in our lifetimes, and simultaneously the most fear we've ever seen around technology. That tension doesn't resolve on its own, and it takes a kind of deliberate, sustained community communication that Chris is describing. It also takes leaders like Chris to help shepherd those fears and create a culture where the technology is not only accepted but embraced. So thanks again for listening to Tech and Learning Conversations. Any ideas or thoughts that you have, please contact me. We can add you onto our podcast list. Once again, I'm Kevin Hogan, and thanks for listening.